So in talking about data security and really focusing on database security, what we find is that database assets tend to be the most vulnerable in an enterprise, and they're often very breached. And you can look at recent data breaches to see cases of where databases are very sensitive. So in looking at a database security methodology, you really want to be very comprehensive in your approach and look at it from sort of two angles, right? One is production and how to secure that. And in any environment or application, we're going to have non-prod as well, non-production copies, right? We have production and non-production. So in production, you want to really look at a lockdown strategy. Lockdown strategy. And in non-production, we usually look at a combination of, a security strategy and a masking strategy and some monitoring. Right? But really making data difficult to use, not so much worrying about it being stolen. Over here, we usually have, higher security, right? Over here, we're going to have more open because we may have contractors or consultants or outsourcing, right? And the security is typically more strict in production databases than it is in non-production databases. So any good security strategy is going to have layers. And we want to have a multi-strategy, multi-pronged approach. So in production, and this will apply a bit to both, but the multi-pronged strategy is the first thing we want to do is monitoring. And we can think of that almost like a video camera in the database, monitoring activity. So we have privileged users, we have DBAs, people who may have authorized access, but how do we monitor them? How do we make sure what they're doing? So think of the good analogies like a camera in the database watching for activities that we do not want to happen. This will protect us from internal threats a bit, and we should be able to alert and log cases where we have activity we don't want to happen. Another layer, think of it like a fence or a fortress, crudely drawn fence there, but think about this as protecting against external threats. We want to put a firewall up or a fortress or a fence to make sure that we're protecting against cyber attacks, attacks from the outside. And we should be able to, in a solution like that, we should be able to detect an intrusion attempt and block it, stop it from getting in. Another strategy to look at is strengthening, and I'm going to draw some glasses here to represent sort of doing vulnerability assessments on the database, right? We need to inspect that database to make sure that we don't have chinks in this or weaknesses in the fence, or that we're not completely secured and locked down. And we want to have a solution here that will look for standards according to each database. And in an enterprise approach, which is what we always recommend here at BTRG to our clients, an enterprise approach should be multiple platforms. We should be able to look at all the major database platforms like DB2, Oracle, Sybase, and be able to have pre-built inspections and understanding. And at BTRG, one of our solutions that we look at is a vulnerability assessment for applications. So we want to be able to extend, not only cover the database, but even go further into our applications and make sure that our sensitive applications like PeopleSoft or ERP applications don't have weaknesses in their security as well. So again, multiple layers here. We've got the camera, we've got the fence, internal protection, external protection, looking for vulnerabilities and make sure we're secure. Next thing I'm going to draw here is I'll just sort of use some masks here to represent sort of comedy and tragedy, but masking, right? And I've talked about this in non-production environments. We want to look at ways to make masking happen where we do allow access, and maybe some of these might not cover us because we're letting an external resource look at our data or have access to an environment to do legitimate work. Why show them the real data? Let's produce fictional values and make that no value if they see it. There's no real information that can be used there. There's no real credit cards, no real social security numbers there. Another approach is redaction. So if we have documents, we want to black out those sensitive data elements. So even in, and we should be doing this in conjunction with our databases, or even in a way against production. You want to be able to do a combination of these two, what I'll call sort of on the glass, right? On the environment. So as data comes out of the database, if we're displaying it to somebody who doesn't have ability to, or authorization to know that, let's just mask it as they see it, leaving the database intact. So you can see we've got multiple approaches, and what you want to do, what you want to really look for when you're evaluating solutions is a solution that kind of encompasses all of these capabilities, which is why we've aligned at BTRG with the IBM solutions, because they do all of this in a comprehensive security approach. They address these things. They also address encryption. So I'll sort of draw a key here, crude looking key, but that's supposed to be a key. To do encryption as well, to make sure that we've got a really comprehensive approach. And you want that to be enterprise, right? Because you don't have just one database. You don't have one environment that you need to lock down. So you want to look at an enterprise level approach that will do multiple layers of protection, all in one comprehensive solution. And in the InfoSphere brand, you have this with Optum and Guardium. Guardium can solve our production and do the monitoring, the fence, the encryption, the inspection, and then a combination of Guardium and Optum can do some of these features where we can mask data and make it of no value, mask it, redact documents, and as well mask it just in the presentation layer as people pull it out. So they're unobtrusive. They don't actually change the composition of the database unless we're talking about masking non-production environments with Optum, which we can do. But you really want to have, again, a comprehensive approach, looks at multiple layers, multiple ways of solving, and the more layers you have, the more secure you're going to get, and do that across the entire enterprise.